Well, friends, good chilly morning on Friday here. I hope this sounds okay outside. I'm just recording this as I'm a stubborn, rebellious northern boy who figures that the first part of May we should be able to be outside. It is Friday morning and it is chilly. And it is difficult for us when we start to see things turning the corner in our province that we think, well, let's get outside and start to enjoy these days, and it's as chilly out as it is. Sometimes these events, or at least environments like this, remind us of how much we really do need to continue to exercise patience, or maybe it's a better understanding is when patience actually kicks in. If there's things that are happening that haven't really bothered us, that haven't really been hard to deal with, hard to call that dealing with patience, isn't it? Because in some ways it's like, well, patience means there's going to be something you have to be patient with, and it's not always easy to understand where that begins and ends. I think patience begins generally when we've come to the end of the kind of thing that hasn't been difficult to endure or put up with. There's all kinds of restaurants and stores I see up and down this street here that are closed and have been closed for some time. And it's getting to us, isn't it? And sometimes what in getting to us that way does is it really does reveal what I mentioned to one of my buddies yesterday, is this idolatry of comfort and ease. Now, it can sound like an idolatry of things that are familiar and normal, but the things that are familiar and normal to most of our lives are things that make us comfortable, and they're things that make our lives as easy as we'd like them to be. I'm not suggesting every one of our lives is an easy life, carefree, pain-free. I'm not suggesting that every aspect of our lives are always comfortable. I am suggesting that the things we yearn for and long for and press forward for are things that make us comfortable. Most of us don't strain or stress ourselves to be uncomfortable or to find ourselves discouraged with what's actually happening. And so part of the challenge for us going into the weekend again is when the scriptures tell us to be patient in all circumstances. Boy, that's a lot higher calling than we realize when we've got a lot of things to be patient with, isn't it? My buddy Paul Muslin, who works with World Team Canada, he and I were on a Zoom call just yesterday, and we brought up this issue of what are some of the things that we're going to have to do differently when we start to slowly and even eventually return back to our churches. Part of the thing we mentioned is to take back into our churches a greater appreciation for the things that we probably did take for granted before, and the very things that we aren't able to do now are probably the kind of things that we are going to have to be patient with. But more to the point, let God revealing our own idolatries really shape what's going to go forward, shape our lives as we go forward. I think a waste of COVID-19 pandemic time would be for God to reveal our idolatries of what we think we have the right to and the right for, and what we can demand, and even we as churches are demanding that the government let us back, or demanding that we have certain rights, or just these ideas that there's things that somehow our whole theology of suffering is just gone out there. There's nothing we're supposed to have to put up with, and if we do, well, we certainly know how long, don't we? Well, isn't that where patience comes into it? Patience comes into it when we've come to the end of our time, that we can handle it, and now it's more difficult to handle. And one of the ways you handle it is with patience. But the other thing is, as I say, we don't want to waste the revealing of our own idolatries, particularly that God has been pleased to reveal to us at this time. And so we exercise patience because we're barely just hanging in there. And then when things get back to, quote, normal, whatever that means, we just get back to everything that made us comfortable and easy before, rather than seeing, okay, Lord, are there aspects of my life that there's things that I'm really yearning and demanding and requiring in my life that you're trying to wean me off of? you're trying to show me that there are things that are more important than that, or the things that I'm sure are so important just aren't nearly as central to my Christian life as they need to be or as they ought to be. And so I just want to encourage us, friends, that as we think of these next few days, we're going into the Lord's Day again, week 10. This will be the 10th Sunday on a wonderful celebratory day on Mother's Day that we have. It's actually the Mother's Day for so many folks that can be happy and can be really discouraging, as you know, because there are people who don't get on with their moms or don't have their moms around, or never, in some cases, even known their moms. And they have a lot more to be patient with than those of us who are feeling like without our normal Mother's Day dinner or connecting or hugging our moms, that as if that's the biggest problem. Let God, friends, put our lives in a little bit of perspective every once in a while, and that by His grace and for His glory, He would help us to live in a way that we really do rely on His sufficiency. That when God promises that I'm going to cause all things to work together for good, for those who love God and are called according to His purpose, that really does mean that the best things that we could get are the things that God gives us. That's worth pondering, isn't it? That the best we could get is what we do get, because God is promising that He's going to work all of those things. I don't think just a generic good of 5 or 6 different things that could be good, but this is really the best that it is for us when we recognize that we got to take the long view, we got to take the long term in these things, and by God's grace we really can find joy in the midst of circumstances that of themselves don't lend themselves to that. So be patient, hang in there, seek gratitude and joy from the Lord, and that as we do that, He'd be honored in our lives. Cheers, friends.